Hey, hey, hey. Hello, hello, hello. Y'all tell me if y'all can hear me. Can you hear me? I'll wait. We're going to see if we can do it this way so that it can stream to other places. Just trying to see if anyone can hear me. If you can't hear me, then I'll. All right, Kiva. Kiva, can you hear me? I see Kiva. Just trying to see who else is there who can hear me. Anybody there? I see 7 people, but I do not see if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Hello, I see Dre. Dre, does that mean you can hear me? Just checking to see if I need to switch. Dre says yes, he can hear me. Yes. So used to people talking back to me. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, Dre. Let's see who we have. I'm going to give it a minute and see. 5 by 5. I don't even know what that means. 10. It's been 10 minutes. That's 25. My math is off. All right. So if this doesn't work, then I'm just going straight to Facebook Live and do it that way. All right. Y'all stay tuned. I'm going to just jump on. Oh, it means loud and clear. Okay. I'm going to jump. Well, I'll stay here. All right. So, hey, Sean. All right. So I was just giving it a couple of minutes. I wanted to be able to just pop on and answer a couple of questions, some things that have been coming up. And I'm going to give it one more minute now that I know that everybody can hear me, that everyone can hear me. And then we're going to go from there. Hey, Kiva. And I'm going to try my best to not be long because it's just me. And I tried to, it was my attempt to do this video from Dre Mosley. That's it. It was my attempt to do this video outside from my happy place. Oh, okay. So it's a little delay. It was my attempt to do this video from my happy place, which is outside, but it began to get a little nippy. So I chose to come indoors. So we're going to do it this way, and I will try not to rock in this chair. All right. Okay, cool. So just want to jump on. First, I want to say, I know she's not out there, but I would be remiss if I didn't give my homegirl, Tyrita, a happy birthday. So happy birthday, Tyrita. I pray that you are having a fabulous day. Tyrita is someone who definitely has been an encouragement on a journey and has had a listening ear at times. So happy birthday, Tyrita. But just to come on, October is National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, and yesterday was National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day. And so it's interesting how we have all of these days where we're celebrating daughters and sons and mothers and left-handed, right-handed, and things like that. Yet, National Pregnancy Infant Loss Awareness is, I saw very little mention of it, which is one of the reasons I am committed and intentional about having this conversation and keeping this conversation going, not only in the Black community, but especially in the Black community, because it is something that we do not talk about. It's a very big stigma. Mental health is already, there's a stigma on getting help. And then talking about miscarriage and things like that, we just don't do it. And so I think it was important for me to come on and share and talk a little bit about some of the challenges that individuals face, whether individually or collectively, and just really give a voice to the silence. What I didn't know, something that came up a couple of weeks ago in a group that I was in when I was sharing my podcast title, and they got to listen to pretty much podcast listening party, and someone's comments and feedback to me was thank you very much for having this discussion, because also I have not experienced it. Your conversation gave me insight as to how to address and talk to people who are experiencing pregnancy loss or infant loss or infertility. And I hadn't considered it from that perspective. When I talk about infertility, I often talk about it from the trying to conceive perspective, and not much from the pregnancy loss perspective. One of the things that came to me this year was Mother's Day and Father's Day. And so often times people don't know what to say to you during that time. So it's kind of like, do I say Happy Mother's Day? Do I say Happy Father's Day to fathers? And there's some hesitance. Hey, Brianna, there's some hesitance as to how to address. And so I'm going to set the record straight with this. If life starts at conception, then at conception you are a parent. People shy away, or well, I would have said Happy Mother's Day, but I know she lost the baby. It's the same as if you have a child and your child passes away after years. You are no longer not a mother because your child passed away. So that's the first thing that I really want to put out there, is that when people are experiencing infertility and then leading to miscarriage or infant loss, stillbirth, or infant, death, SIDS, things like that, when you have a young child, it doesn't negate their motherhood. And so I think it's essential that you know how to address people, and that you don't shy away from addressing them for some fear that you're going to offend them. They already are aware that is, that they've had a miscarriage, that their child was stillborn. They're aware of those things. So you're not taking anything away from them by not acknowledging them. For some people, and it varies, some people may feel like they don't want to address the day at all. And some people may feel like, it's important to have some kind of conversation around it because it's inclusive. So make a note of that. If you know someone who has experienced miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, don't negate that birth and life starts at conception. So that person is a mother, that person is a father. So I start off by saying I'm not a mother because I have godchildren, or because I'm a good aunt, or because I have a foster daughter. That did not make me a mother. I'm a mother because my baby is in heaven. And so that is what defines motherhood for me. That my baby, that I have known the journey of chasing rainbow. So it doesn't negate or dismiss. So the next thought that I have is trying to conceive. And I'm really just looking at the graphic that I put up yesterday that spoke to trying to conceive, infertility, miscarriage, stillbirth, mental health, coping, and emotions. Is that trying to conceive is a journey unlike any other. For anyone who has been on that journey, it is critical, it's difficult, it's challenging, it's overwhelming. And I want to say 9.5, right? Or 9.9 times out of 10, people do not know that you're experiencing it. People don't know that you are going through it. They don't know that you are having challenges. And so I would encourage you, there are a couple of things when you're dealing with couples specifically. I'm going to speak from a couple's perspective. There are a couple of things that you don't want to ask. And the first one is, when are you having children? Or how many children do you want? So the first one is, when are you having children? How many children do you want? When do you plan to start a family? Are you guys sure? Right? Or is there a problem, or whose fault is it? So those are some things that you really do not want to hear, or, the questions that people are not ready to ask. And there's an awkwardness because there's an evasiveness to that. And I find that we have grown into a culture of people who will just ask anything that they want to ask whenever they want to ask it. And so, one of the things that I learned early on, being around other women who were struggling, and knowing stories that they were going through, is that to be in the midst of a group, and people come up and they're, when you haven't been, you don't know the situation or circumstance of that person. You don't know what someone is going through. And so when you approach them, I'm sure many people have experienced the, when you're having a hard day, you're struggling, you're trying to show face, and you don't want to, I guess, cry or break down in front of people. And so you end up saying, when people, you're good until somebody say, are you all right? And he's like, mm-mm. And then they, you sure? You just seem like, and you can't hold it back. So it's easier to just not ask those questions. People will share it with you if they want, but just be mindful of the when and how come. Are you sure? Did you try? No one wants to hear that. I promise you, people just don't want to hear that. So just being cognizant of that. Infertility in its own. There's so many reasons that people struggle and suffer with infertility, and in a lot of cases, they are it's unexplained. So unexplained infertility. And so when you're dealing with unexplained infertility, people are asking you questions and you don't know the answers. The doctors don't know the answers. And that's why they call it unexplained infertility. And for women who've already had a baby, they have secondary infertility. And so we now know this term as the rainbow baby. And so many women who are chasing rainbows and babies after miscarriage. And so just being mindful of that infertility is vast. There are a multitude of things that can come up. There are so many times that people are struggling and having challenges or concerns. And I think it's just essential to be mindful of that, the questions that you ask, and how intrusive you are, how discouraging your questions can be to people. LaShawn said, the first 8 years of my marriage, people always asked when we were going to have kids. And, people, you just don't know. The question is so disturbing. And, I'll be sharing more about this in the months and days to come, a little bit more about my journey and my story. So this is really a broad overview and just some tips for other people to be able to face and navigate and talk to people that they know and love. But yes, LaShawn, that question is unbelievably invasive, and in the grand scheme of things, people don't want to hear it. So to that, LaShawn, so if someone is out there and they want to ask me a question, or they have a question regarding how to respond, or anything that they should say to people they know, feel free to drop it in there. I'll answer it while I'm here live. If I don't get it while I'm here live, I will answer it for you later, because I think that this is essential. 1 in 8 women struggle with infertility. So if you look, whenever you're in a crowd, when you're home with your family, when you're amongst a group of people, just know that 1 in 8 women struggle with infertility. So that alone should let women know that they are not alone, but it really doesn't. Infertility is something that really is a silent suffering. It's like so many of the mental health illnesses, because you do not get to share it. And people, oh, yeah, man, we're trying, man. It's hard. It's my 5th miscarriage this year. We just really are struggling. And, man, it's hard. We thought we were going to have a baby. We painted the room. We did this, and then we get into the concept of not sharing it. And wait until it's safe and all of these things. And so there are so many things I could say about that, and I will at a later time. But really, just being mindful of your conversation as it pertains to miscarriage and infertility. When women miscarry, oftentimes women don't even know they miscarry. It takes time. Once you have experienced multiple miscarriages, early stage miscarriages, you do become aware of your body. You do get to know your body. And in doing so, you are able to identify when you are conceived, when you are in plantation, when those things are happening. And so there's this, 2 week wait cycle in that trying to conceive journey. And that 2 week wait is one of the most, I mean, the whole thing is devastating. So I could say the 2 week wait is one of the most devastating times. But at the end of the day, the whole daggone thing is devastating because you're looking, you're waiting for within that window to see if something is going to happen. In some cases, especially with women who are actively trying, who have a difficult time, they do become pregnant and then the pregnancy doesn't hold. So they call it spontaneous abortion or miscarriage, depending on when it is, depending on the term in the women's body. And so just being mindful of that you don't know what people are going through when you're around women. It's like, man, she's so moody, or she just always seems emotional, or she always seems like this. There's always a stigma or a label that we are putting on women, and you just don't know what they're experiencing. Once I started talking about my journey, other women begin to come up to me and share their journey with me. And so I really do wish that 13 years ago I had someone on this journey with me. I really do wish that I did not have to walk this journey alone. But since I did, right? And when I say alone, very, very, very few people knew the journey that we were on. And so that was by choice, right? By design, and by design based on the stigma that is associated with infertility. So my goal is to be sure that women know that they are not alone, that they do not have to suffer silence, and that this abandonment that you have to feel after miscarriage or after pregnancy loss, that it can be filled with people, that there is support. And so I want to continue to share and raise voice and awareness for that. Mental health component, of course, I'm a psychotherapist, so I'm a mental health advocate, but I have learned so much about how infertility affects your mental health, and even my personal journey and experience. I get to see now some of the things that I was experiencing, because there is trauma associated with trying to conceive. There is trauma associated with a negative pregnancy test when you're trying. I mean, there are people who get a negative pregnancy test and they turn up, right? Because they waiting for it, like, yes, but for women who are not looking for a negative pregnancy test, there's trauma associated. And so you want to be cognizant even of that, of the emotions of people. And LaShawn and I, we're going to talk about that in the coming months, what that looks like when someone in your family is experiencing um, miscarriage or infertility, and how the people around you do not know what's happening, yet they can judge or gauge or expect that something is wrong with you in a manner that it isn't, right? So instead of people being understanding and thinking to themselves, oh well, they must be having a hard time, what they're really thinking is, man, something wrong with them, or they're moody, or they got an attitude, or you know just it can make you, these emotions, the emotions of it, the varying components of which you go through, can make it difficult for people to want to be around you. I'm absolutely certain, y'all ain't got to throw your hands up or comment, but I'm absolutely certain that there were many times that I was unbearable, or people didn't want to be around me, and a lot of times they didn't even know why I was in the space that I was in, but clearly I was. Now, as people have become aware of my experiences and what I have gone through, they have some more understanding of the journey and the seasons as we pinpoint different times. But it is difficult, right? And so we just want to be mindful of that as well. LaShawn says we didn't know, right? So it is hard, because you feel like you can't share it when everyone around you, and I will say this for family members, for peers, when everyone around you is pregnant or is getting pregnant or is acting pregnant, whatever the case is, was, or will be, when you are having that level of experience, I will tell you, it is so overwhelming. And so you don't know what to say. You're stuck in places having conversations with people you don't want to have a conversation with. And then I am not exempt. People look at me or they talk to me and they feel like, because I'm a psychotherapist, because I'm a Christian, I'm exempt from having emotions, powerful emotions associated with this. And I am not exempt. I do not have to be on all the time. I do not have to sit around and talk about, act like nothing is wrong with me. I have decided that I will no longer become a part of that stigma that silences my own personal challenges. Yes, I understand there's ethnics, there's different components to psychotherapy that I am mindful of, but I also know that it's important, has always been, and will always be important, essential, and critically that I can be unapologetically, authentically me. So that means if I know that, I'm struggling with anxiety, I'm struggling with anxiety, right? If I know that I'm having a challenge, I'm having a challenge. And I tell people, I'm not exempt. So I do experience and go through some of these same challenges. Finally, I have value regardless. One of the greatest stigmas about infertility, about motherhood, about womanhood is that motherhood defines womanhood. Motherhood does not define womanhood. You are a woman even if you are not a mother. And so I think it is grossly considerate. It's a gross, I guess, concept that when you are not a mother, that you do not have value. But so many women struggle with their value outside of motherhood. And so for me, I know, in the beginning, I'm like, well, God, what am I supposed to do? Like, this was a plan. Like, I had a journey, I had plans, I had all of these goals. And so when those things didn't happen, you get to that point where you're kind of like, well, now what? What am I going to do next? And so I'm here to tell you that you do have value regardless, and that motherhood does not define you. Um, I want you to know, whether you've experienced it or not experienced, whether you know someone or you can pass this information on, is that it is so essential for you to encourage a woman who is experiencing the journey of infertility or just the journey toward trying to conceive. Because it's a lonely road, people walk it alone, and it can really eat you alive. It can be so overwhelming that you don't know which way to turn. I was blessed to have first of all, I was blessed to have the most incredibly amazing, supportive, God-fearing, praying, covering husband ever. Um, in that in the sense in that he was always there, that he understood what it took to pick me up off the floor when I just felt like this is it, like I can't go on, like I'm exhausted. So when you don't have that person, because sometimes couples are both on the floor, right? Or you don't let people in, know try and be available to someone. I encourage you that this week, whether it's pregnancy, infertility, mental illness, loneliness, grief, shame, try to be available to someone. If you can be available to one person this week that you maybe have not been in contact with, someone that maybe you used to hear from regularly and now you're no longer hearing from them, it's essential to reach out and find out what's happening, because silence speaks volumes. And when the volume goes down, sometimes it's important to figure out what it is. And so for Christian women who are struggling, this is last but certainly not least. For Christians, there is a thought that Dre always got something to say. I think I love him more than he does. Who's that you love, Drake? Kyrie. Is that when Christians have the thought that the very thing that God has called you to do, you are unable to do when you're dealing with infertility as a Christian woman or a Christian couple. It can begin to take a toll on your faith. And so, hear me, please, you wonderful, amazing, Bible toting, godly Christian people. Please hear me. If you are talking to someone who is dealing with infertility, there are a couple of people you do not need to mention: Hannah, Sarah, Rebecca, right? They know. They already know about Sarah. They know about Hannah. They know about Rebecca. I am not Sarah. I am not Hannah. I am not Rebecca, and neither are they. And so you want to be mindful of your comparisons. The speak life, for those of you that want to speak life, and you go ahead and you do that. But being mindful that these scriptural cliches, right? Because in many cases we take them out of context, that you have to be mindful of how much you put on people in the name of Jesus. Everything does not come from God. So when somebody's coming to you and they saying, for all you women who are out there who are trying to conceive, come down to the altar and we're going to lay hands on you and you're going to give birth, I'm going to encourage you to seek the Lord for yourself. Okay? I'm not saying that God can't do it. I'm not saying that God won't. What I'm saying is to know the Lord for yourself. So I pray that someone was encouraged, that you have some tools or tips or something to share with someone else who is on the journey of infertility, who has dealt with pregnancy and infant loss, and who just needs someone to come alongside them. Pray that you can be a voice, that you can listen, that maybe your lens has been adjusted enough to not turn your back on people who are struggling in a very tough time. So I appreciate you taking this time to join me. If you know someone who can benefit, I encourage you to share it, and stay tuned for more unmasked, unveiled conversation about my personal journey through barren land, chasing rainbows. Until later, bye.